Hello and welcome to TV on TV. I'm State Representative Tommy Vitolo. You're watching Brookline Interactive Group. Today is Thursday, November 21st, and we have a great show for you today. Our guest is Gio Valencia. He is the executive director of the Brookline Community Development Corporation. More than just a mouthful, the BCDC is very involved in a variety of housing needs around the town of Brookline. Gio and I are going to talk about that in an interview we recorded about a week and a half ago. I hope you will stay tuned for that. And between now and then, as always, we are going to read the news. President Biden approaches the end of his term. He's working on getting as many judges confirmed to the federal bench as possible, following a roadmap set by then President Donald Trump just 4 years ago. After more than 50 days, Western North Carolina and other areas hit by Hurricanes Helene and Milton have regained access to clean drinking water. President-elect Donald Trump has confirmed that his deportation strategy will include the declaration of a national emergency and the use of the United States military. Last week, the Massachusetts legislature passed a $4 billion economic development bond bill. Included in the bill were provisions allowing municipalities to use project labor agreements for public work projects, $400 million over the next decade for the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center to make investments in climate tech and offshore wind, and $500 million to renew support for the life sciences industry. It will also allow for the sale of local craft beer at farmers markets. The legislature also passed a climate bill last week. The primary item in that climate bill was to allow for reformed siting so that everyone involved in the process understands the process and decisions can be made fairly and efficiently. Of course, a variety of other topics were included, including electric vehicles, moving beyond natural gas, and so forth. But again, the highlight was really the siting reform. Governor Healy is working with labor unions to develop offshore wind energy in preparation of the incoming Trump administration. The push would lead to a tri-state offshore wind farm generating 30 gigawatts of power by 2040. Nearly all of Massachusetts is in a critical drought after months with little to no rainfall. The drought has brought brush fires around the state, including a very, very small one right at Brookline Town Hall. A new study released by the Brookline Department of Economic Development and Long-Term Planning has determined that there is, in fact, more than enough parking in Coolidge Corner. The town's water and sewer director sent out notices to about 200 property owners around Brookline, stating that their pipes may contain lead. Brookline High School cross country won their third straight state title last week. The Brookline High School girls volleyball team lost to Newton North in the state championship after posting their best season in 4 decades. Folks, that's the news. Stay tuned, and after the flip, enjoy my conversation with Gio Valencia, the executive director of the Brookline Community Development Corporation. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for watching TV on TV right here on Brookline Interactive Group. As I said, today our guest is Gio Valencia, known as Gio. He is the executive director of the Brookline Community Development Corporation. Gio, thanks for coming on the show.
Tommy, thank you very much for the invitation. This is a pleasure and an honor for me to be here having this conversation with you and with the Brookline community.
Now, Gio, you and I have gotten to know each other a good bit over the past few months, but many of the viewers have not. So the first question I essentially ask every guest is, what have you been doing your whole life? What's going on? Tell us about yourself.
Thank you very much. And yes, I had the opportunity to meet with you several times over the last 2 months, and I really enjoy and appreciate a community like Brookline, where you can see people very often. You can meet with people at local cafes and just get to know about their lives and local issues. So, Tommy, I am originally from Colombia. I moved to Boston about 18 years ago. In Colombia, I worked for the City Hall in Bogota as an architect and for the state in Bogota as well as an architect and project manager. When I moved to Boston, I moved because my wife is from Boston. She's Bostonian. We met in Guatemala, actually. We worked there for a year, moved to Boston, and when I moved here, I didn't speak any English. I think I shared this with you before. So I started as many immigrants do, just having different jobs that allow me just to practice English and get to know the community and how things work in the greater Boston area in Massachusetts. I got involved in community engagement, community organizing, working and volunteering for political campaigns, mostly in Boston. And after a few years, I got the opportunity to work for a community development corporation in Jamaica Plain. I worked there for about 10 years, promoting projects for the creation and preservation of affordable housing, advocacy, tenant organizing, and community development. I left the JPNDC as their vice president of community planning, and that experience working with communities, with legislators like yourself, and especially with community members, allowed me to find opportunities like this one I have right now. And that is to become the first full-time executive director with the Brookline Community Development Corporation, or Brookline CDC. It's been a couple of months since I joined. I joined in September. We have done a lot over the last 2 months, but before my time, especially the board and some staff members that we had been connecting with the Brookline community and doing what they can to support and improve local issues.
So I want to, we learned about your history. I want to get a little bit into the history of the Brookline CDC, but first tell us, what is a community development corporation? What does that mean? You mentioned you worked for the one in JP. How does that one compare? Give us a little sense for this part of the world for the viewers who aren't familiar with it.
Correct. So a community development corporation, or a CDC, is an organization that is recognized by the state and local government as as an organization that has a base, a local and geographical base, representing residents who have different backgrounds, and especially people who have low income residents, moderate income residents, people with disabilities, people of color, people who need support in programming. So community development corporations are spread all across the state. I think Massachusetts has about 60 to 65 CDCs. Just in Boston, there are like 12 at least CDCs in Boston. In Brookline, we are very lucky that we are the only one, so we don't have competition. But the Community Development Corporation works to bring more opportunities to the people in their geographic area. In our case, those opportunities are especially focused on providing affordable housing for rental and home ownership, providing opportunities for residents to get to know how to improve their finances, how to increase their financial mobility, how to get a better job and get the support they need to pay rent, how to learn and take the first steps in their process to become a first-time home buyer, how to work with community members, advocates, legislators in identifying the best policies that can improve the quality of life for everyone, especially for underserved communities. So that is what, in general, community development corporations do across the state. Many of them focused on building housing or maintaining their affordable housing. Some CDCs also have economic development programs. Some CDCs focus heavily on advocacy and community organizing or programs. And we are the Brookline CDC. That is what we are doing right now, reorganizing ourselves, picking up on our history and legacy, and see what we can do to do more for the Brookline community, and working in partnership with the partners and many other local nonprofits and organizations that are here working in the town of Brookline every single day.
Now, I happen to know that Brookline CDC on paper has existed for a long time. I think it used to even be under a different name, and it was fairly quiet for a while. What changed? Why is the BCDC sort of the exciting new friend in town?
When we are. So this is a very interesting question, and actually I didn't know about our history, of course, before I came to Brookline. The BCDC has been working as a community development corporation for about 3 or 4 years. Before that, we were the Brookline Improvement Coalition, BIC, created or founded in 1980, if I remember correctly. And for almost 40 years, the organization's main focus was to create and preserve and maintain some properties that we have in Brookline. At this moment, we own two buildings, two small buildings that are occupied by low-income residents here in Brookline. Over the years, we were able to acquire private units or apartments and just change the rules and ensure that those apartments became affordable housing for sale. So some families were able to buy a new affordable condo because of the work that the big did before 2020. And but mostly what Big did was just to ensure that those two properties that the organization owns were providing housing to local residents. Now, when COVID started, COVID was, I think a big transformator for everyone. And the board of directors that we had starting in 2020, 2021, 2022, just decided to change what we were doing. And looking at all the economic disparities that were increased with COVID, the board decided to do more and just to say, hey, we cannot only maintain properties, we cannot only spend time trying to find an apartment here and there to buy and then sell as an affordable unit. We have to do more and get more engaged in the fabric of the town. So the board started a new process to recreate the organization. We became a community development corporation. Officially, we are a CDC in Massachusetts. We are a nonprofit as well. And this transformation that Deborah Brown and the board have been leading is moving us into a new direction that is to become more engaged in the community, work with partners, with um, the legislators in town to ensure that we do whatever we can to identify more resources and be more creative in the way we do, in the ways we use or we do to create affordable housing, to create and preserve affordable housing, and in the meantime, to provide opportunities for residents who will need to wait until more housing is available. So other than housing, we have programs that we can talk more about during this conversation. But that was the big shift. BCDC became Community Development Corporation, so we can start doing more work and build more partnerships and grow as an organization to provide the services that CDCs provide to the local communities across the state.
Now, you mentioned you sort of the CDC inherited some properties from the Brookline Improvement Coalition. I happen to know these were not, brand new, fully paid off, perfectly operating properties. On the contrary, these are some properties with some real challenges. I
Correct.
also know you've been working very hard to find some resources to improve these properties. Tell us a little bit about um, the challenges and your successes so far in finding the money or other resources to help bring these properties up to a higher standard.
That is a very good question. And you are right. I can compare this, what we are doing at this moment, to what I was doing before in Jamaica Plain. In Jamaica Plain, that organization has been working as a CDC as well for about 45, almost 50 years. and they created about 1,000 units, let's say, over the last 40 years. So that provides revenue for the organization to maintain the properties and to create programs and buy new land for new housing. In Brookline, at the Brookline CDC, we own two properties. One, 1017 Beacon Street, beautiful historical building, and one at 156, 164, 156 Bolson Street. That's so Beacon Street has 16 single units for residents who are extremely low income, and they receive programs and support from the Pine Street Inn. At the property that we have in Boylston, there are 6 units. So that is like a building, like two triple deckers attached, 6 units for families, 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms. That, properties, especially after so many years, because buildings in Massachusetts are pretty old in general, they require updates and upgrades. And you are right. As the VCDC, we spent the last couple of years, first of all, understanding what we needed to do to fix those buildings, to ensure that those buildings are provide the best quality of life for the residents who live there. And that is not only cosmetic, that is not only painting or fixing leaks or cracks, that is ensuring that we do our best to protect the planet. And one of our biggest goals is to decarbonize those two buildings. That requires moving away from fossil fuels, from gas and oil, hopefully converting those buildings to electric for heat and AC, the stoves as well, moving from gas to electric, and changing the windows in the envelope so the buildings are tight. There is no more leak, cold air infiltration. So we started doing a capital need assessment for both properties. And with that, we identified many issues: all windows, all doors, the AC systems is all oil or gas. So the board and the staff members who were part of the VCDC over the last 1 or 2 years spent a lot of time and energy working with the town, with partners and legislators, identifying funding to do critical repairs or emergency repairs, and also to do a big change and transform those properties to property that will be there, providing beautiful housing for the residents over the next 50 to 100 years. So it was a really hard work, just trying to find the money, the application. We applied for CPA money, for community block money. We applied money for with foundations and organizations like LISC or LIN. We were able to achieve the allocation of several grants for the renovations. And at the time when I joined the Brookline CDC, I joined in a critical moment where we are just finishing the last touches on those legal agreements and starting the work to fix those properties. So a lot of work with paperwork and advocacy over the last 2 years. Now, the next phase for us is to implement, is to fix those buildings, is to start repairing what is urgent, what is critical, and what we can do to decarbonize the properties. So I'm going to give you the first good news, and is that we already started the work at Beacon Street. We have a new project manager who is working with us, just creating the list of things that we are going to start implementing. We are fixing a couple of leaks that bring water into the basement. Very soon, we are going to have groundbreaking ceremony because we have to celebrate. So many people, including yourself, Tommy, have been behind us, supporting us and helping us during this very long process of finding the funding. And we have to celebrate. This is a big victory. We're going to have a groundbreaking for the renovations of Beacon Street, most likely during the first week in December. We just don't want to wait until the spring. I think even if this is a small event, we want to acknowledge and recognize everybody from the town, the offices who have been providing support and funding, and especially the community who has been supporting the BCC over the last many years, just telling people, took a while, but we are here. We are going to start. This building is beautiful, it's historical, and the residents who live there will have a better housing conditions in a very, very few months. So that will be for Beacon, and we will do the same for Boylston during the winter or early spring.
That sounds great. And right, sort of making sure your existing buildings are fit for the next 50 or 100 years, of course, is critical. And I understand that's near-term work. That's important. It's happening now. Tell me a little more about the hopes and dreams. What is a longer term vision for the BCD? See, nothing that you have on paper, nothing that you've necessarily gotten funded. I'm not asking for a commitment or detailed plans, but what are some of the big ideas that have been floating around the board or in your mind? Tell me about some dreams.
Well, me, in a personal level, as an immigrant, I know how difficult this is for people to find housing that they can afford. Brookline is such a beautiful place with so many opportunities. Unfortunately, not for everyone. So, in the long term, I would love to see that people who live here have the opportunity to stay in Brookline, that their children or grandchildren have the opportunity to stay here or to come back after they go to college or they travel the world. And the only way to do that is creating more affordable housing, is transforming some housing that we have into affordable housing, providing opportunities for people to access mortgages that they can afford as well. So, big picture, we are doing what we can. I know the town has many conversations about initiatives like the accessory dwelling units to create some more opportunities for housing in Brooklyn. Personal goal is to do whatever we can, working with people and advocates here to find. There are already some sites that have been identified by the town and by ourselves that will be great places to develop. So long-term goal for us is to build housing for homeownership opportunities, affordable homeownership opportunities for senior housing as well. People want to downsize. People who own a house at this moment, sometimes I talk to residents who live in this beautiful home that has 4, 5 bedrooms, and they cannot live because there is a say they are house rich, cash poor. They have this beautiful home, but they cannot move to another place because it's too expensive. They cannot subdivide their house because the zoning regulations don't allow that. And they want their family to come to Brookline and live here. And building affordable housing, I think, is the most important goal that we have as an organization, creating more housing opportunities. And in the meantime, providing programs for residents to understand better how to improve their quality of life. At this moment, we have the emergency rental assistance program, um, working with different entities, public and private entities. We have been able to leverage some funding for the second time in a row in a year. I mean, we did that last year, and this year we are going to start very soon providing emergency rental assistance to families who are in risk of being evicted or being displaced because they have financial situation that doesn't allow them to pay rent. They are behind, and especially low-income families and people of color are the ones who suffer the most with this kind of circumstances. So we're going to start providing that emergency rental assistance, but the long term is that we are working in partnership with, like, let's say the BSA or the Brooklyn Community Foundation to provide opportunities for those individuals or families to get the knowledge they need to improve their quality of life long term. That is taking the home buying classes, family self-sufficient. I remember you also attended the graduation of several BHA and Section 8 residents who graduated from the Family Self-Sufficient program at the BHA. I think there are many things that we can do to provide long-term stability, and emergency rental is once it happens one time in a year, but long-term we can provide other opportunities for families to learn how to get a better job, how to start an emergency, create an emergency budget, how to go back to college or finish high school. And so housing, education programs, and advocacy are goals that for the long term and the short term we are going to engage. And especially the education is very important. Let me just say one more thing. When I came to Brookline, I read the report from the Brookline Community Foundation from last year, Understanding Brookline. And I was absolutely surprised to see that 25% of residents in Brookline are struggling financially. 10% of the residents are living in poverty. Because when you don't live here, you don't see that happening. You don't understand how a town with so many resources can have such disparity. So the education is important. So many people here want to do the right thing and they want to advocate and work together. And that is what we want to do as a Brookline CDC, is being part of the process and also to create opportunities to generate conversations that can influence policy, funding, and community building.
So we've just got a minute or two late, and I want to just flag something. You know, recently you had your annual gala fundraiser. Obviously, you need the dough to do the good work, right? Sometimes you know, sweat equity can only go so far. You need the foundation, you need the foundational support, you need the money. Now, I happen to know that donations of a certain size to the BCDC get a very remarkable tax treatment. Can you tell us just a minute about that so folks understand that a contribution to the BCDC just has this multiplier effect, at least for the time being? I can't tell you what the next administration is going to do.
Yes, thank you. And we are very worried about the political situation across the nation because most likely some federal funds are not going to come back to Massachusetts. We are very worried about that. For that reason, more than ever, contributions from donors, from community members who want to help us to do the work is more critical than ever. Anyone can make a donation of any amount to the BCDC, and that is always welcomed. If people can donate $10, 50, 100, that is always welcome, and that will help us a lot. But if somebody can make a donation of $1,000 or more, 1,000, 5, 10,000, 50,000, we have community investment tax credits. This is a state program that the state of Massachusetts has for some nonprofits and especially CDCs, where we have tax credits to sell or to give to people who make those contributions. So anyone who makes a donation of more than $1,000 get 50% back on the state tax. So if somebody makes a $50,000 donation to the BCDC, they may be eligible to get 25,000 back from the state of Massachusetts for the estate tax. We have a limited amount, of course. We cannot do it for everyone, but we still have tax credits for most people who want to make a donation, hopefully before December 31st, so they can take advantage of the tax credit for the 2024 tax season. But we will have more tax credits next year. So thank you, Tommy, for mentioning this. Donations of any amount are critical for us, but especially if people want to benefit from the CITC, Community Investment Tax Credits, $1,000 or more, 50, $100,000 will be appreciated, and we can absolutely work on the CITC tax advantage.
Now, folks, you can go to brooklinecdc.com, learn about the Brookline CDC, read Gio's bio if today wasn't enough for you. And I'm sure, I know there's contact information there if you have questions about making contributions, other questions for the CDC. I'm sure they would be happy to answer, but that's all the time we have today. folks, Gio Valencia, the executive director of the Brookline CDC. Gio, we're so grateful you were able to come on the show today.
Tommy, thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and I'm sure I will see you around very soon.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching TV on TV right here on Brookline Interactive Group. We'll see you next week.
Roger, 0J, and I feel fine. Lift off and the clock has started. That's one